Ashraf Laidi is a global chief strategist at Citi Index, and he's with us. Ashraf, good to see you. Just want to start with getting your general thoughts on the market, given that we are breaking through these record levels once again stateside. Is this going to continue through the second half of the year?
The short answer to that, yes, until we get through the next bump in the road, which is probably in September, when the suspense will be not whether the tapering will start, but by how much. And the market is quite obsessed with the binary aspect of the market. Will there be QE3 or no? Will there be the tapering? No. The next one will be by how much will the tapering? Will it be 65? Will it be 55? Will it be 70 instead of the 85? But basically what happened yesterday, I think the market, and the reason the market sort of went up and we did not see much of the declines, is because I think the market is beginning to absorb the message of the central bank of the US, which is basically the message is that we will do the tapering, but tapering does not mean a tightening. So the tapering or the reduction of the purchases does not necessarily mean a spiking bond yields, as has been feared and warned by Mr. Carney and Mr. Draghi.
Yeah. Do you think, Ashraf, that we're going to have tapering at all this year, or is there a risk, good or bad, that it carries over into next year?
You know, if you asked me that question 4 weeks ago, I would have said no. But after the press conference of June 19th, after the Bernanke conference, when he pretty much said that the tapering will start in September, if not September, will be December. It will have to start this year. But then again, Louisa, tapering does not mean the end of the world. It may be instead of the 85 billion, it could be 70. As long as what we have learned in the markets, as long as the central bank manages to communicate its message very well, the volatility is able to be dampened, and the Fed could even say that if we could raise rate next year. That is not to say that they will, but they could manage to do that and say that if they communicate the message very well. And I think the market.
You mentioned there. Sorry to cut you. You mentioned there that if the message is communicated well, and yet the experience of Mr. Bernanke's prior 3 public appearances and speeches was that actually, to be fair, he's a hopeless communicator. Yesterday was the only day when arguably he's actually got it right.
Yeah, well, it's quite subjective whether yesterday was the only day. I think before yesterday's appearance, you will see the commentary from the Fed insiders that we will get a tapering, and we will get the tapering. The question is, what is going to be the trigger for that? Is it going to be the trigger? Is it going to be the threshold? Look at the Philly Fed survey today. It went at a 2-year high. If these numbers continue to be okay, if the NFP continue to be at least 120 and 130,000, then the economy is quote unquote strong enough to handle less of a drug. Instead of 85, we will get probably 70. I think the message was loud and clear. People got surprised from the minutes and the speech of last week, which sounded a little bit more dovish. Why did he sound dovish? Did he change his mind? No, he did not. He paid attention to his counterparts from the BOE.
Do you think he got spooked?
He didn't. Well, and also he got a slight warning from Draghi and Mr. Carney that, listen, those bond yields, they're not really too good for our weaker economies. So, Mr. Bernanke, could you take it easy a little bit when you talk about the tapering? And pretty much that's what happened. This is what he said. We are going to taper, but we're going to provide accommodation. Markets like that.
Yeah. So what do we buy at the moment then, Ashraf? Is it just kind of equities? That's it?
Well, we could say that, I mean, we've been looking at the 1700 and the 1720 in the S&P since the beginning of the summer. Gold is not necessarily a buy. It still continues to be a sell. I think probably the equity index that I'm least likely to buy is probably the FTSE, still leaning towards the S&P and towards the Dow. But in the foreign exchange arena, I think that an ideal pair would probably be close to ideal, would be long sterling yen. Ahead of the elections in Japan, Mr. Abe is going to finally be the prime minister, the first prime minister to get power in both houses in 6 years. And he's going to do whatever he wants with the yen. The yen's going to go down, and with the sterling, and what will happen with the MPC. I think probably buy sterling yen until when, Louisa? You know what? Until when? Probably until August the 7th. The Bank of England inflation report.
That was exactly the date I would have given you.
Exactly.
Exactly
you see that?
the date. Ashraf, thank you very much. Good to see you. Ashraf Laidi, Chief Global Strategist from City Index.